Dragones del Mar is a 2023 release from Chilean publisher Fractal Juegos. This 2-to-5 player design from Yaniv Kahana, Pini Schechter, and Simon Luciani has now been released in multiple languages, and Draco Studios will have the English language version, Sea Dragons, for sale at Gen Con 2024 to bring it onto the US market. I've now played this game on a review copy from Fractal Juegos 3 times, once each with 2, 3, and 4 players, and it's a fine design in both the best and worst senses. I think it does exactly what the designer set out to do. It provides a challenge for players as they have to consider lots of different elements and mix things together to try to accomplish multiple goals. And yet at the same time, here are the components of Sea Dragons set up and ready to play, with you representing a family of sea dragons that is going to occupy various sections of the ocean, north, east, south, and west, to attack ships and collect gold and occupy coral reefs and show your dominance in the different quadrants of the area. The setup is the same no matter the player count. The only thing that changes is the number of sea dragons that you have. With 2 players, you have 14, and 3 is 11, 4 is 8, and 5 is 7. That's the number of turns you have in the game. Each turn, you are going to place one of your dragons on the board with a corresponding number of parts, or you throw it away for gold, but you don't want to do that. That's a wasted turn. Ideally, you're going to get those dragons onto the board to show your dominance of the waters. Each player starts with 2 dragon cards of size 4, and the game includes cards in sizes 3, 4, and 5. On a turn, you reveal a card, put a dragon down in the shape shown on the card, do some stuff, and at the end of your turn, you draft a card of a size different than what you played. So at the end of my turn, I must draft a size 3 or 5. So your choices fluctuate over the course of the game. You must place next to this gold starting area or another dragon. You cannot place adjacent to yourself, as in Blockus. You are a family of sea dragons, but you apparently don't like one another very much and will touch at most at the corner. You can play wherever you can afford to play, as long as you follow these rules. If you go in the water channel or a whirlpool, you must pay 2 coins for each space that you cover. Players start with 4 coins. You can get coins by covering them on the board and other ways. You can rotate. This does not do much when you rotate, but you can rotate or flip piece as you wish. You are trying to, again, get coins, cover coral, get ships, and dominate quadrants. I could rotate the piece this way, go here because I touch gold, take as many body parts as needed to make this shape. And I collect the red and green ships. I can hand them in immediately. If I have, each ship I have at the end of the game is 1 point, but I can spend these 2 immediately, get this contract for 5 points. There you go. That's better than 2 points. You can claim at most 1 contract each turn. That's replaced immediately. This card goes away. I pick something else. At the beginning of the game, often you want the big cards because they will cover more space. You can get at most 2 ships on a turn unless you have a size 5 card, and then maybe you can get 3, depending on how well you place it. This, for example, could end up covering these 5 spaces, but of course you have to touch another dragon or the gold area, so you couldn't do that from the start of the turn or start of the game. Next player goes. I'm going to pretend I have a 3-player game, and maybe they place, they have a straight 4 piece here. So they take these 2 ships, they put them aside, they pay 2 gold for covering this space. Purple goes. Maybe they have another L and they want to build off here for these pieces. Whenever you touch another dragon while placing yours on the board, that player that you touch gets 1 gold coin from the bank. I'm not sure what sort of transaction is taking place, how they're earning money from you coming in their area and laying your hand on them, but that's how it happens. So orange would get 1 gold coin. Purple gets nothing other than these 2 ships that they will hold on to for later. You continue play. I cannot play in this area because I cannot touch my own sea dragon, So I can look at what I have here. What looks good with this staircase step? I could go here and get a red, get this Reef card. Let's do this just so you see how this looks. So I'll play this card, get pieces out. Purple will get a gold coin because I touch them. That sounds weird when you say it that way. And now I get a Reef card. Reef cards come in 4 types. They are cards showing 2 ships of different color. You can spend them whenever you want to fulfill a contract, possibly along with other ship tokens. If you need to use only the red and the purple doesn't matter, too bad. You throw away the purple as well. You can get a joker. You get a ship of whatever color you wish to help fulfill a contract, or it's worth 1 point at game's end. You have a card worth 4 coins. Cool. Now you can pay to go into whirlpools and channels or just earn 4 points. And you have cards showing one of the 4 quadrants. At game's end, you are going to get a bonus if you have the most dragons in a quadrant or the second most dragons, assuming you have a game with 3 or more players. What you score is points based on the number of whirlpools that are still visible. So if you're shooting for majority in a quadrant, you do not want to cover the whirlpools there. If you look like you are not going to get majority, you want to cover whirlpools to reduce the other player's score, but that costs you money, which is points. So do you want to spend points to knock down the points of someone else? When you are trying to get majorities, you can do things like, let's say I end up building, I get this shape later. I go here. I have to pay 2 coins for covering this water channel. I get these 2 ships. Okay. Put them in front of me. And now this dragon is present in 2 quadrants, here and here. When I'm counting at the end of the game, I would say I have 2 dragons here and 2 dragons here. Again, it doesn't matter where the head is, only that you have a presence there. That is the advantage of crossing into multiple quadrants. It just costs you money to do so. If there's a tie in a quadrant, then you look and see who has the most body parts, which sounds weird, but that's how it works. I currently have 6 in this quadrant. This is in the middle channel. It does not count for either quadrant. Here I have 7 parts. I also have 2 dragons, so I'm currently winning over these 2. And here as well. But I've only done 2 turns and they have done 1 each. These cards will count to give you a majority. If I own this card, I actually have 3 dragons in this quadrant, but it has no body parts and does not count when determining the winner in case of a tie. Okay. You get Reef cards only by covering coral or by taking a contract card that includes a reef symbol. So this card is worth 11 points on its own. This is worth 9 and a reef, which could be better. The points vary because there's a slight difference between which colors of ships are available. Gameplay continues along these lines with the board filling up and pirate ships getting scarce. You must be judicious when deciding when to spend them because you can get at most 1 card on a turn. Do you want to get lots of small ones quickly? There's a 5-point bonus for whoever claims the most cards. Or hold on to those ship tokens and go for more valuable contracts. This one requires 1 more green. It's only 1 more point, but you get a Reef card, which, well, the value of it depends upon everything else that's going on. Unless it's 4 gold, in which case it's 4 points. Although you can use that gold to then do things like this and get quadrant bonuses by having majorities. So that could be worth far more than 4 points. Or maybe you want a blue so that you can get 6 more points for that 1 more token. You're going to keep an eye on the tokens that everyone is collecting. You don't necessarily know what cards they have because they could draft from the top of the deck, but if you see what they take, that even still doesn't necessarily let you know where they can play. You look at the board and you can see where it's possible for people to go, as well as where you cannot go. By playing in this way, I have cut off all of this space to me. There are no two space dragon cards, so I cannot place here. I can't place a third one because I would touch one of my own. So all of this is dead to me. It could be occupied by someone else. And eventually you're going to run out of places to play, especially if you were trying to dominate a quadrant and get that majority bonus. So you sometimes want to play carefully in order to leave yourself room to grow in the future. But in a game with more players, often you will find that space occupied by one of your opponents before your turn comes around. That's why you have a variable number of dragons, depending on the player count. With more players, the board will just fill up more quickly, so you have fewer turns, and you'll end up with roughly the same level of competition, at least based on my limited experience. Once everyone has played, and on a turn, I should mention this, you don't have to place a dragon. You could throw away a card, remove one of your dragon heads from play, and get some gold from the bank. That is a last-ditch measure. Maybe you desperately need coins in order to make a play that's vital to you and occupy one of the water channels or a whirlpool or something in order to claim this space that you desperately need. But ideally, you don't do that. You're able to place dragons constantly on the board and fight for those majorities, because that can end up being a huge number of points. Let's show out the scorecard for a 4-player game that we had. I was the most experienced player, and I ran away with it here, getting a majority, another majority, and second place in this quadrant, in addition to lots of contract points and the bonus. Experience counts in this game. It does play into how well you can do, because you can look ahead a little bit at what you think other people can do and what you can play for. In addition to that, you also have the luck factor of which contracts become available. In one of my games, we had someone who took a card like this, card that flipped up, super valuable contract. I had 2 or 3 of those ship tokens, was able to get the other on my last turn, and boom, 16 points almost out of nowhere. You have the Reef Cards that come up that can turn the majority in your favor, or provide that desperate ship that you need in order to get some big points near the end of the game. So experience matters in what you're doing here, but there's some luck as well. Also, with the shape of the cards, there's only 2 shapes. These, the 4 and 5, there's a lot more. And what seems like a good idea initially might turn out to backfire in the long run as you try to figure out where to place something like this once the board is filled. You'll run out of places to play, and maybe that's another reason to take that dead turn action of throwing away a dragon card, a dragon head. You also get to discard one of your cards and get a new card. So it can get you out of a hole if you have cards that you cannot play, but that's a drastic measure that ideally you'll never have to take. Ideally, that description gives you an idea for how it feels to play Sea Dragons, where you have a real mix of tactical and strategic elements all in the same turn. You're placing down a dragon, getting ships, completing a contract. Maybe you're just trying to do that and lock in those points. But at the same time, you're putting down a foothold in a certain quadrant. You're fighting for points long-term as well. Maybe you're picking up coins because you're planning for the future. You want to go to a particular space. You need the money so that you can do that, because you have to pay for those whirlpools and water channels. You can get the Reef Cards as well, and that's kind of a mix of both, because maybe you draw the ships you need at this moment to claim a contract that you couldn't have gotten otherwise. Maybe you get a quadrant card, so it gives you an edge on a majority bonus at the end of the game. Although, of course, maybe they have one too. They have a card. Are they also fighting for the South? So you keep an eye on who has which Reef Cards in hand. You got the 4 coins, which is a nice surprise card, because ideally you're trying to choke people of money so that they can't do what they want to do. You see what card someone picks up, you think you know where they want to go, but they need money to make that happen because they're going to cover 2 whirlpools because they're looking to get those ships. I'm not going to place next to them. But as the game progresses, you must place next to other people, because the center will get filled. You can't place adjacent to yourself. You must place adjacent to someone else, which is going to give them money. So you have to decide where you want to go and who gets that money. If you place adjacent to multiple dragons, then the owners of each of those dragons gets a coin. So lots of money can come into play, especially in a game with more players. You don't want to give someone the money so they can do that thing, but maybe they've got 4 coins on a reef card and they can pull that out and do the thing they want to do and suddenly fight for majority in multiple quadrants. So there's lots of good elements that come together. The interaction, well, again, you're fighting for contracts, you're fighting for majorities. That's all very interactive as you're doing things. The space interaction, since you can't play next to yourself, you're kind of leaving places for other people to go. Ideally, someone is going where then you can play off of them in a productive way. So it's kind of a consideration when you're going somewhere. Am I putting someone else in range of a reef that could give them the thing that you think they need? Can it give them the ships they want? Of course, you have to go somewhere, unless you just don't do anything, and then you'll definitely lose the game if you just throw all your dragons away and just get gold. That's not going to win you the game. So it's this randomish interactive element where you have some ability to shape what other people are doing, but often you're just reacting to what other people are doing. And that especially happens when people are putting their dragon down on the board, especially the player to your right. Half the time will occupy the space that you wanted to go to on your turn because you had plans and now they took it instead. Again, this is with 3 or more players, because with 2 players, you're just bouncing off of each other, which is a weird element there. So the game is interactive. It's got lots of elements that work well, and yet I find myself being sort of about the game. Part of it is that the gameplay slows down over the course of the game, or at least the momentum slows down, because you start with a full board and you have sort of the same choices as the game progresses. I mean, initially you're going from the quadrant, so you have a limited number of spaces. As people branch out, you have more spaces available, but the spaces are all kind of similar-ish because there's not real variety there. It's gold coins, it's ships, it's reefs. Okay, maybe you need a particular color and that color has all been taken, so then there is some difference to it, but otherwise it's sort of the same, and it's more where you want to fight for majorities. But over the course of the game, those ships mostly disappear, and now you're desperate to find a card that will let you play in a particular space to give you that particular ship in order to complete that particular contract, and maybe that card's not available. And it feels like instead of a game where everything builds as you reach the final part of the game, it sort of goes here and then it just like drops off a little. There's not a rush toward the end. You're not building towards anything where people are playing more powerful things. Often you're going for smaller dragon cards because you're running out of spaces to put something. I just need to fit another dragon on the board as I'm fighting for majority, so I'm going to get a 3 card. And then I play a 3 card, I can't draw another 3 card. I have to draw a 4 card and hope it's something that I can play. So you've got this tight element here where the game feels like it's sort of falling off. The randomness of the wanted cards, I get it. It's an interesting element where you don't know what's coming. You can plan this somewhere. You can just pile up ships and hope other people will turn up those big cards and you can get them. As I mentioned, I had this game where I magically got handed this size 4 contract. I forget whether I could have claimed anything else, but that was huge. And then I got the 5-point bonus for having the most contracts at the same time. So it all just like this luck element comes into play. So the other element is that it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything necessarily clever or that I'm working towards something over the course of the game. You are, because you're fighting for majorities. You're trying to win that bonus. But I don't feel like I'm doing anything particularly special. And maybe that's just me. The feel that I have, I mean, it's an engaging game that I think, again, does what the designers want to do. It gives you this challenge of all these elements coming together, you trying to complete sort of this, the ships and the majorities together. And then there's that little bonus as well of 1 point per gold, 1 point per ship token left over. Ideally, you have none of that and you've converted all of that into majorities and contracts. So it has these elements that all work together. And I feel somewhat indifferent to it. And it's weird because it seems like a really good design. And it could be like, yes, it's a fine design. It's just not for me. It's real interesting trying to notice that and see those elements of, does the game do what the designers want to do? And does it do it well in a compelling way to provide this challenge? And again, I think it clears that bar. It's just for other people. So there you go. Now you got an idea of sea dragons or Dragones del Mar. There you go. Now you know how to play this fine Werperson Santiago art on the cover. It's cool stuff. Maybe you'll like it better than me. One other element. Forgot about this. Almost forgot. Should have mentioned this. Let's look at the board again. Let's clear everything off to look at the tiles. Because this is a modular board. Has 4 tiles that are double-sided. One side of the tiles is the same on each of these. So you can set this up so every quadrant is identical. Okay. You have a fair setup, or at least something recognizable. The other side provides slight differences. Not much. So we have 4 coins. In exactly the same spaces. Okay. The reefs are slightly different. The ships are slightly different, but it's not that different. If I flip this one over, how do these two compare? Or how does it compare to the non-flipped side? Again, slight difference with the reefs. With the whirlpools, there's still 4 coins. So there's variety on the back, but not really. It seems like there's a lost potential here because you could have changed the game in some way where the opposite side of the board really meant something. Maybe instead of these coins, you instead have 4 reefs. Something where you're just like, okay, everyone's going to push in this direction and try to fight for those reefs and give you something else to go for. But instead you have what's on this side, but slightly rearranged. And that's all of them. So sure, it's a modular board, but to what purpose? To what end? It doesn't change the gameplay experience. It gives you slight variability in what's coming up. So here, this one has 2 whirlpools right near the start. You have to sneak around there if you don't want to pay for it. But yeah, it seems like there could be more. Give us something with 15 whirlpools, or I don't know, something where it's meaningful in a bigger way to have that variety, that modularity, more variability in here. Seems like it'd be more purposeful. This brings up one other element, and maybe the more I talk, the more elements I'll bring up, but I think this might be it. You start with 4 gold, and gold has only one purpose in the game, to allow you to occupy whirlpools and the water channels between quadrants. That's it. Gold is worth 1 point at the end of the game, but in each of my 3 games, whoever ended up with the most gold lost. You want to use that gold in order to do stuff, or not waste your time looking for gold. You want to have just enough gold to do exactly what you want to do. But where do you get this gold? You get it by covering spaces with dragons, and you get a gold coin from the bank. Okay, but I just put down a dragon to get a coin? That seems so minor. I can get a reef card, but that's random on whether I'm going to get that or not. Okay. And then I'm going to get it when someone builds next to me. And I don't have control over whether someone's going to build next to me. I figure probably over the course of the game, some number of people are going to build their dragons next to me. I'll get some amount of money. Is this kind of random trickle of money coming in? You can try to starve people out of money, but that doesn't work really over the course of the game. at least from my limited 3-game experience. And the 2-player game is really weird because you can't build next to yourself. You must build next to another dragon, so you're building next to that other player. So they get a coin, you get a coin. They get a coin, you get a coin. They get 2 coins, you get 1 coin. They get 1, you get 2, and so on. So it's this weird parity element that doesn't add much to play. It almost seems like the earning a gold coin from someone building next to you was this kind of kludge to add this tension, where maybe it's going to happen, and maybe it's this interactive element. I almost wish it worked a little differently, where you had a certain amount of money, and that was it. Or you had a certain amount of money, and you'd only get money by covering spaces or drawing reef cards. And again, you could have that more modular element of the game where some spaces will have 3 coins and some have 2 and something. You have the gold board and you have a reef board and you have some super ship board or whatever it is. And you have more variety to play, and it's meaningful it's more meaningful in the impact that it has on play. You're going to start with 10 gold, 12 gold. I don't know. Again, playtesting would figure all this out. You're going to start with some amount of gold, and you have to allocate that and figure what are the really important points for you to occupy these spaces. Or are you drawing those cards or working towards something that's going to make gold more valuable to you rather than just having 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there. It just trickles in all the time, and it sort of loses the importance of it. It's this sort of steady state flow, similar to the flow of the gameplay, where you play and then sort of more opportunities, and then it just sort of drops off over time. It's not an arc to play where it starts little and you escalate over time and you have sort of that end point. It's this sort of steady state play. It's a perfectly valid way to do the game, but I usually want something where there's more of these impact moments, these moments where you're just like, I couldn't believe. And it doesn't have that for me. I wanted more variety in it, and that gold is one element that strikes me that way, where it's just like it could have been done a different way to provide a different feel. If I just have that gold and it's running out over time, and I'm just like, oh man, I need to play this card, but I just don't have the gold. But if I do that, I'm stuck for the rest of the game only going where there are no whirlpools. Something along those lines where it just feels like it's more meaningful. Maybe that's not possible because you have roughly the same number of turns over the course of the entire game, depending on the player count. And so, well, then you start with different amounts of money based on the number of players. Okay, I'm redesigning the game here, which I should not do. Judging what's there, it all works well. Again, they did what they wanted to do. I'm just at a different table, I guess. Hope you have fun with Sea Dragons.